Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are, whatever you're doing, and welcome to another episode of Media Matters for Anfield Index. It is Monday, the 28th of July. It is a little bit later than we normally do it, but think about it this way: we've given plenty of things time to develop, and there's plenty of things we'll be talking about. We'll be talking about off the field. We've actually got a game to discuss as well at the same time, so that'll be interesting. And I'm joined as ever by the renowned and the respected David Lynch, who you can tell us honestly, you are enjoying actually talking about, or the chance to talk about a game rather than just transfers for once.
Yeah, I mean, you can't kind of, as a journalist, can't be too down on this period in terms of doing the transfers because it's good for us to work on. It's exciting. Yeah. It's exciting for supporters. It's really interesting to write about and get into. But of course, there are some downsides, which is that social media is a bit kind of toxic around transfers sometimes, and so that side of it is a bit downside. So, but I've always, obviously, I mean, the thing, and this surely is true of everyone or any sane football fan, is that the matches are the best bit. That's the thing that got us all into it. They are superior to the transfers, even if some people forget that sometimes. So, yeah, really nice to have a game to talk about, and we're getting close to the season starting, aren't we?
Yeah, true. It is not too far away. And in fact, the Reds themselves, they've got another game on Wednesday, haven't they, against Yokohama, 11:30 British time. And we might as well get into Saturday's game. I mean, an interesting one, partly because of who was available, who wasn't. But if we talk about the game itself, a 4-2 defeat, a raft of changes, obviously a completely different team in the first half, completely different team in the second half as well. Almost 2 false tens as well to start with. What were your actual thoughts on the performance, even if it was the two halves or the overall thoughts?
Yeah, I guess you've got to disregard the results at times. Although, I've previously said, and I think this is true, that Slot would prefer to win these games generally because I think, winning is a habit. I think it was helpful last season that they won a few preseason games. It really built confidence, albeit probably slightly different in terms of the importance of results this time because he's not bedding in a new team completely. It's kind of, there's a core there that knows exactly what's expected of them. So there's probably a bit more experimentation going on in this one and trying kind of new things. And then it's going to be going back to, once the season starts, the things that they're familiar with, really. So you maybe shouldn't hang too much, I guess, on the results. So we won't. So I guess some of the things they're looking for is performance and whether they are able to pull off some of the new tactical things they're trying, just how everybody's looking in terms of sharpness and things like that, and any new tactical tweaks we're seeing. So in terms of that, I thought a lot to like, really. I mean, particularly first half, which was a stronger team overall, I think. Thought Liverpool played some really nice stuff, some really quick passing, some really nice movement, a couple of standouts there in terms of performance as well, which I'm sure we'll talk about. But the team performance as a whole, I think in that first half was pretty decent, really. And I think in terms of one of the things, I think Milan won the game because, they took an approach, didn't they? Was, I don't know, it's good practice, I guess, for the season that's to come, but it was very much kind of sit deep, soak up pressure and hit on the counter, which wasn't kind of something Liverpool was set up to counter themselves in a pre-season friendly. They stayed with a stronger team for a longer period in the game as well. So I think that contributed. But I think there's a lot of positives that Arne Slot will take as well from it.
Yeah, there definitely was. And almost in a way, as much as people talk about the team, and we'll go into it a bit more, individuals got called out. And probably that, I'm sure the lad on the screen is going to come up. But there were quite a few sort of shining stars or good performances, weren't there?
Yeah, I mean, to talk about Ngamo, I thought he was very, very good again. I mean, after you see him at Preston, you kind of like, oh, well, definitely League Cup minutes for him, FA Cup minutes this season coming up if Liverpool get favourable draws, and then you see him again against AC Milan, and you kind of like, well, maybe a little bit more than that. Maybe maybe we see a Premier League debut from him. Maybe we see more from him coming this season, because I know he's only 16. He's about to turn 17, but he just looks pretty good, doesn't he? And I said this in my own video analysis of it, that the thing I like the most from him is that he did all the things we're excited about. He's so good in take-ons, really quick exchanges, good feet, all these aspects that we've seen. But there's a left-footed shot he gets off at one point that I just love, because I just think he needs to have that up his sleeve. He needs to be powerful shooting on his wrong foot as well, because that then really creates doubt in defenders' minds. And again, the fact he's got that in his lock. In fact, that might actually be the shot in the picture there, to be honest. And he really tests the keeper with that. So I love that. I mean, he just showed, he can go either way, and he's going to be a threat there. He's already shown a bit of end product as well. So a lot to be excited about around this kid, really, and really interested to see what role he plays in the season going forward, really, because I know from speaking to people as well, he's worked really hard coming into this preseason, so he's grasping his chance absolutely, and everybody's been very impressed with him. So very much looking forward to seeing what's more to come. And in terms of other standouts, really, wanted to pick out Wirtz, really, because I thought, he didn't actually kind of do that much. Again, said that the numbers from his game weren't that impressive, but some of the touches, the movement, some of the little exchanges with other players were just so delightful. He's just clearly an absolute class act, isn't he? And again, we're only getting our first glimpses of him now. I can't wait to see more. And he's, all this talk about Isak and all these things that are going on in the background, all these changes Liverpool are making. The fact his signing was wrapped up quite early, we're almost kind of forgetting about him a little bit. And he's going to be one of Liverpool's best players this season, almost certainly, if he stays fit, because he's one of the best players in the world, and Liverpool are very lucky to get him. So really excited about him as well.
There was that one, I think it was the first half, where there was the quick interchange with Salah, the 1-2 after a fired ball. And you kind of wondered why Salah tried to play it in back. He didn't just sort of bend it into the far corner like he normally does on his left foot. But there was so much to like, especially from those two. And people will also look at it and trying to be balanced here. Like you said, 4 goals conceded. I mean, one's a goalkeeping defensive error, but quite a few on the break. Is there anything to be maybe concerns too strong about, but they'll look at, do you think, or just analyse from that one at all?
Yeah, I think it's something the manager will talk about. I mean, he's big on details, and that was a key detail from the game, wasn't it? So when they watched the game back the day after, no doubt they'll have been focused on that. That said, there will be the caveats there that they will completely acknowledge, which is that they're doing double sessions at the moment. So running back in to stop a counter-attack is much more difficult than it will be when the season starts. The heat out in Hong Kong that they're training in as well is a factor. And, in terms of levels of determination, I'm not sure they're going to be at the absolute highest for a pre-season friendly versus when the important games come around. So, like I say, there's a lot of caveats and mitigation there, I think. But, I think it's something he'll talk to the players about, and he'll hope not to see a repeat of that in the games that are coming up. I think Dave is maybe frozen there. So it looks like I'm going to be hosting as well. I think one of the things, actually, just looking at our agenda that we go through here, one of the next topics we were going to talk about was the Forever 20 memorial around Diogo Jota. So I think actually just to talk about that, because it is definitely worth talking about, is I think that what they're doing with the talk about building a statue around Anfield, I think is a brilliant gesture. And I think the prints on the shirts as well is really nice. And what I kind of loved as well was that the fans in Hong Kong as well got to pay their special tribute as well, because I think, we always say, Liverpool is a big club, isn't it? It's a worldwide club. And, for those fans to get their moment to show their support to the players as well, I think was really, really special, wasn't it? So, yeah, I was glad to see that. And I'm glad about the long-term tributes that they're going to put in place as well around Diogo, because I think that's really fitting. And it's right that, it is going to be something that defines the upcoming season, the absence of Diogo Jota. I think it's something that we're all kind of coming to terms with at the moment. But yeah, it's that's going to be, I think those tributes are absolutely spot on. I think it's typical of Liverpool that they've absolutely judged that right, as they have, I think, with everything that they've done through this period. And again, so I'm going to start asking myself the questions here as we wait for Dave to come back. Sorry about this, guys, but I think the next topic on the agenda was around the vice captaincy as well, which obviously you may have seen some speculation around who that's going to be. Obviously, that there is that vacancy there with Trent having left, and I imagine at this point Dave was going to ask me who I think it should be and who I'm thinking it's going to be. And I have to say, I probably think it's my call on that is that it's probably going to be Mo Salah. I think he'd be the right pick when you look at the experience levels. The again, he's renowned, isn't he, as someone who is, such a good person around the place in terms of the levels of professionalism that he sets, and his character really is someone who wants to squeeze absolutely everything out of himself. I always remember that story that Harvey Elliott tells actually about when he goes to pick up a piece of bread when he's eating his dinner at Kirby, and Mo Salah was like, no, not if you want abs that look like this, not if you want to be as fit as me. And, again, that's what a vice captain should be about. I think should be about setting standards. He's also a little bit more vocal, I think, than Trent was as well. For all the talk about Trent being a future Liverpool captain, I never really kind of bought into that, in the sense that I never thought that he was kind of the right character for it. Not vocal enough, not necessarily kind of a guy who even led by example in the way that maybe a Steven Gerrard would. So I never felt like he was a fit. Whereas I think with Salah, he is a renowned leader around the place, really. And for me, he's going to start every game. He'll be there to pick up the armband in case Virgil's not starting for whatever reason as well. And I think someone who's going to be on the pitch every game and someone who sets the example that he does is an ideal captain, really. I wonder if Dave is ever going to come back. Here he is.
I've got it like that. Literally, you were talking. I was like, nodded. Then all of a sudden you went. And then I was like, yeah, sorry. That was me completely.
Just to catch you up, by the way, Dave, I spoke with myself about the Diogo Jota tributes and also the vice captaincy, which I'm giving that to Mo Salah. So take it from there if you want, really. I'm glad not to be hosting and being on here as well. It's quite a difficult job.
I did actually want to ask you, especially around the, I suppose, the vice captaincy, the leadership group, because you probably saw it. There was a few having a joke with Robbo, who was honest and said, no, I've not heard anything. I've not been told. But Arne Slot's almost alluded to, like, he's made his call, but, I'll tell people at the right time. I suppose the other angle was, there's so many candidates for this. Was there anyone you were looking at and thinking, that's who I bring into the leadership group? Because obviously some...
Oh, I think Dave's frozen again. So we're talking about the leadership group, though. I'll take that up there. Yeah, it is an interesting one with that, because there are a few vacancies there. I saw people in the chat mentioning maybe Szoboszlai. I think he is a good leader. I think obviously Hungarian captain at quite a young age. He's known as a big personality around the place. So, I think he maybe is a decent candidate to come in there. And, someone else who doesn't get talked about really around this. And I suppose the reason that he maybe won't be put forward for this is because of his contract situation. But I think Ibrahima Konate has taken some really big steps in terms of that. He's something he spoke about a couple of seasons ago, really, about wanting to grow into a leader and wanting to take more responsibility. And by all accounts, and everyone you speak to at Liverpool, is that he's definitely done that. One of the reasons he had a much better injury record last season, actually, he said, was because he's taken his preparation and looking after his body a lot more seriously. So that, to me, is, the kind of thing that you need from a leader, as I said, exactly with Mo Salah, really. So Konate is doing all those aspects, and those are the things you want from a leader. So, maybe he's got a shout to come into it. Although I think a key there with Konate is that he sorts out his contract situation. But if he does, I wouldn't be against seeing Konate come into that leadership group. Absolutely.
Brill. And I suppose the only final one I wanted to ask you, it's Yokohama coming up on Wednesday. We know there's a few departed. There's a few will be available. I'm guessing we're not expecting the two false tens, probably Ekitike maybe to get his first minutes as well. Something a bit more like what you expect, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, you could even see Isak get a start. We'll have to see how we get on in terms of that. But no, I'm thinking there'll be a few changes. Yeah, I think it'd be nice to see Ekatike come in there, wouldn't it? Just to get a few minutes, see how that works. I think this double tens thing. They actually did use it last season, didn't they? But it's it's definitely going to be. It's not going to be a plan for this season. I don't think. I'd be surprised if certainly if they did sign Isak, I'd be very surprised if you see that double tens at any point. So I think it's just a case of getting players on the pitch, getting them fit, getting them the run out that they need in pre-season. So hopefully, I mean, there's not that long now till the season starts. You're kind of running out of friendlies. So they're going to start to have to kind of nudge towards something that's a bit more of a sane team and maybe, fewer changes as they build up the fitness. So, it'd be interesting. But I think the thing I'm looking forward to most from that really is to see a bit more of Wirtz and see a bit more of and to see some of Ekatike, because we really haven't seen any of him at all, apart from little clips in training or whatever. So excited to see how he fits into it as well.
There we go. I think I'm back. Maybe just time out. So apologies, ladies and gents. You probably sense on my end there is some sort of Wi-Fi tech gremlins. I don't know what you'd refer it to, but kindly, David is carrying the show for us quite well there. So you mentioned the name. We've got to ask about it. It's on the screen. You've heard probably about this all week, like many of us. And I'm trying to think of all the phrases I've heard, like it's pending, it's close, it's imminent, it's going to happen. Are we all just expecting almost Thanos style, the inevitable to come at some point this week?
Well, the latest I've kind of heard on this is that, not necessarily in a position where, it's absolutely waiting for the bid to go in or whatever. The latest I was kind of told on this, and I want to make sure I phrase this exactly right, is that basically Liverpool are still waiting from the signal for the signal from Newcastle to show that they have got a willingness to sell, which, as far as I'm aware at this very moment, as I speak right now, they haven't quite had that, although that may have happened in the last 24 to 48 hours. That's only the last I've heard of it now. We're still waiting for that. So Liverpool are not going to go in and make a bid without being given some encouragement from Newcastle. And at the moment, or like I say, at the latest info I have is that hasn't happened. But it's clear what's going on here, isn't it? I think this isn't even reading between the lines, is that Newcastle will give that signal when they know that they've got a replacement in the door. So Sesko and Wiss are absolutely key to this scenario, really. So, Newcastle know Liverpool are there. They know that they're waiting. They know that they're ready to pay a British transfer record to get the player in. And they're out there trying to sign two strikers. So I don't think you have to be a genius to kind of read between the lines there to see what's going on. And as I say, the key thing is from the Liverpool perspective, they're just waiting for Newcastle to give them the nod. And I think that nod will come once Newcastle, maybe they've not got the deal completely sealed, but they've been given the okay by Sesko and they're able to get a deal done for Wisser as well. So that's the key aspect here is what happens with those players, or alternatively, another target that Newcastle end up getting for strikers. But those scenarios are absolutely crucial. Liverpool are there ready and waiting. I think Newcastle are already effectively given the green light by making moves forward to sign strikers, but they haven't yet given that firm nod to Liverpool to come in, sit down, let's talk about a fee.
It almost feels like we're in we're in a house buying chain, like the seller's got to sell, buy the new house, and all links together that way. But it does feel like it's coming. I suppose the big positive that all Reds are looking at is all the stories, the updates, whatever you want to call it, that we get is Isak turning down 600 grand a week, no interest in Chelsea, United, anyone else. He's almost saying to Newcastle, it's Liverpool only. So all the noises are positive as we build towards this, isn't it?
Yeah, 100%. I'm not worried about Liverpool being gazumped by anyone else. That's absolutely clear. I think I titled my YouTube video a couple of days ago that Isak wants Liverpool, and I had a few comments kind of suggesting, that's not the case or whatever. As far as I understand it, it is. He's very, very, the reason that this whole scenario is playing out is because the player wants to come to Liverpool and he wants to win with Liverpool. It's not because he's just keeping his options open and he might want to go and earn crazy money in Saudi, or he'd wait for another big English club to come in. He wants to come to this team. So that is massively helpful, of course. And, as much Newcastle's stance is just softening and softening day by day, isn't it? And then we now got to the point that they're already sourcing replacements. So you can never say anything is certain because things could fall through. They might not get Seshko and they might say, right, but we just can't do anything about this. We can't get a replacement and when we've got 3 years of contract left. So you can never say, but everything is moving in that direction, isn't it? For you to have some confidence at least that Newcastle are trying to make it happen, Liverpool are trying to make it happen. But it's just, there are things you can't control in the transfer market. So we just wait and see if all those things can fall into place. But it's certainly more positive than I felt about it maybe 2 months ago, where I felt like this was not going to be a goer at all. But I think what's happened here is the players indicated a clear desire to leave. I think Newcastle have been bloodied and bruised in the transfer market with the failure to get targets in. These two things have combined and just put Liverpool in prime position, really. So, it's exciting. And I think fans should be, should have some degree of belief that Isak is going to become a Liverpool player. But as I say, also a little bit of wariness that, things could go wrong here. We're not there till it's signed. So let's just see how things progress. Big few days and a couple of weeks really coming up in terms of, I think everybody should be having the fingers crossed that Newcastle can get Seshko over the line. So, maybe message him on Instagram and tell him how great Tyneside is. And Newcastle is a fantastic city as well. And it'd be a good club to play for. I genuinely mean that. So, but yeah, maybe remind him of that fact, and that might be helpful.
Indeed. And we'll always have some Newcastle fans in the chat, as we seem to do most weeks as well. And if you thought we were a high-tech show, ladies and gents, it was about 2 minutes ago I realised I'd not actually put the power pack on my laptop. So that might explain a lot of things, the little details. There you go. But sticking on incomings, people probably ask, why have you got Joe Gomez on the screen? But that was part of Saturday. Joe Gomez flying home again. Sounds terrible because we all love the player with another injury. But sticking on the incoming side of it, first of all, surely this, because Mark Guehi keeps getting mentioned again and again, the need for a centre-half just gets exasperated, seems to increase all the time at the moment.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's... The thing is with the Gomez injury is, by all accounts, it's not a serious injury or anything to be massively worried about. But of course, we know he picks up injuries throughout the season. That's absolutely, it's just in his nature to be injury prone. So, I doubt this is going to be the first injury. And what happened then? After that, you lose Gomez, and all of a sudden, Van Dijk's playing one half, Konate's playing the other half, and then Tsimikas is playing centre half. You've got Gravenberch back there as well. It all gets a little bit messy, doesn't it, as soon as you lose one of your three centre halves. So it just underlines to me they do need to sign one. It wasn't in doubt that they needed to replace Quansah. And I think Liverpool do see it similarly. The manager said himself, we've not replaced Joel Quansah yet, so he's clearly acknowledging it. And I think that the key thing here, again, they're just kind of waiting for Crystal Palace to give some kind of indication that they are willing to do business at an acceptable price. And, there is that little bit of pressure on them in terms of what price they go at, the interest he's got from elsewhere, the fact that they could lose him for a free. That's all a factor here. And I think if Liverpool didn't think there was a chance he could get him, that whole story will be over already. They'd be out and they'd be getting an alternative. So I think they clearly think that there's a chance with Guehi, and that's why they're hanging in there. But we're just waiting for kind of concrete developments on that one. And one thing actually to answer on this, because it's on the agenda, so you were probably going to ask this question, but I've already done so much asking of my own questions now that I'm, is whether they'll go with 5. I did see someone mention it in the chat earlier, and I still really struggle to see them doing that. I know everybody says about Gomez being injury prone, and they're absolutely right, he is. But Liverpool will think along the lines of, we've got to pay him a wage, and what do you do if everybody's fit? You've then got 5 centre halves, and you can't play all of them. Who's never even making the squad? It's just an untenable situation they don't want to put themselves in. So, especially when they're a team as well that plays with 2 centre halves, they don't play with 3 or 4 like City have done in the past, or Arsenal do. They've got them all across the back line. it's just not workable to have 5. So I really don't think that's going to be the case. And I know that will frustrate people and people think that's not the right decision, but I think those people should be more of the mindset that Gomez should be sold rather than thinking if you've got Gomez, you should have 5. I just don't think that's going to be something Liverpool will look to do really is to have a selection of 5. I'd be very surprised if they go down that route, to be honest.
It is a tough one, and I get it to some impact because just looking factually, as you know, and we've talked about this before, people will say, yeah, it's great to have those 4, but Gomez's injury record, Konate had a surprise season maybe for a lot of things with the amount of games he played last year. There's no real sort of young centre-back backup with, Jarell Kwanzaa going as well. But the fact that Arne Slot's talked about, well, I can drop Gravenberch in there, I can drop Endo in there. He's talked before about a small squad. As much as fans would want it, and I can almost get the logic to an extent, it all just rolls into probably getting 4 and going from there.
Yeah, but I kind of like that as well. I mean, the ideal situation is, from a purely, if you take the emotion out of it, the fact that Gomez is great and I really like him as a person, if you take that out of it, your ideal situation is probably that you sell him and you get 2 in and one of them's a lot more robust than Joe Gomez and you've got basically 4 for the majority of the season. Perfect. But obviously it is what it is and Gomez is there and you can't add 5. I think it's not feasible to expect them to have 5. So, if that's going to be the case, then to have Gravenberch who can play there, to have Endo who can play there is really, really useful. I thought Endo did really well when he played there last season, actually. I think he's definitely an option there if you need him. So, and the fact is that midfield has become way more competitive since last season because, yes, you're probably going to lose Harvey Elliott, but you've swapped him in for Wirtz, who's going to eat up an awful lot of minutes in attacking midfield. So Szoboszlai's got to go deeper. So all of a sudden he's in contention with Endo, with Gravenberch, with McAllister. With Curtis Jones as well. So, I think to be able to get Endo minutes at centre-half in the League Cup would actually be a good thing, really, for the kind of the happiness of the squad, really. So, if Gomez is injured when a League Cup game comes around, then, stick Endo in there. That's absolutely fine. And that's the way you maybe do it, really. So, for me, my personal view is that 4 and Endo as a 5th is not a bad option. And sometimes you may even throw Gravenberch in there because you've got so many options in that deeper midfield role. So I'm kind of happy with that. And I feel, that Arne Slot sees it similarly.
It is interesting. I kind of get it from both sides, like you were saying. And also, if Guehi is the player that comes in, we are talking about a senior player who's used to playing thousands of minutes a season, isn't he, for Palace, England international. So that probably reduces the demand on Konate, Van Dijk, whoever's taken out at certain times. So I can get it from both point of views there. But yeah, at least one centre-half needs to come in sharpish. But this player I want to put on the screen because his name keeps coming up. Malik Fofana, the Belgian youngster at Lyon, the winger, can play both sides. And I just like showing this tweet because Everton had a bid accepted for him. He's told them no, he's waiting for a Champions League club as well. This is a name that keeps coming up time and time again. And even for the forward options now, people are debating that if Isak comes, is that it? Is there another one? Does that risk others blocking the pathway? We've talked about Rio and Gamoa. It might be an unanswerable question, but if Isak does come, do you think Fofana would still then be added or another potentially?
The one thing I could say about Fofana is I just don't personally know about this link at all, to be honest. Like, I'd just be completely honest there. A lot of the time, it's quite easy to get information on players, whether it's a likely target or not. With Fofana, I just haven't. I'm not say. I was going to say I've not been given any encouragement, and that makes it seem like he's not a target. Or people at Liverpool are saying he's not. I've not had anything that makes me know either way. So I really, really find that hard to judge. I wonder whether he's on a form of a shortlist. If they don't get X, Y, and Z, then at some point he's there or whatever. But just not one I know much about in relation to Liverpool, really. But I think what is interesting that you allude to there is what does this forward line end up looking like?
Yeah.
And I'm so fascinated to see how this one works out. And again, not easy to kind of get this bigger picture stuff in terms of info around this at the moment, because it relies on so many kind of hypotheticals and if you speak to people at any football club, they don't like to get into that too much kind of, oh, well, if if X leaves and then Y leaves, and then, will he come in, and how many do you want then in that case? Because it becomes a bit, you just start telling stories then, don't you, rather than actually talking about concrete information. So the thing I'm finding really hard to ascertain at the moment is if Chiesa leaves and Núñez leaves, which is what we expect, and Alexander Isak, they are able to sign him. Do they just sign Alexander Isak? So your 4 forward options, then you go from having 6 last season, even though Chiesa barely played as the 6th. You go from having that 6 to having 4, which would be Ekitike, Isak, Salah, Gakpo. And then you ask Wirtz to do bits on maybe the left wing from time to time. You ask Engamoa to maybe pick up more minutes than you'd maybe expect. You ask Jeremy Frimpong to be the Salah backup. I can't work out at the moment whether that's the plan or not. It's very, very hard to kind of get to the bottom of that at the moment, and I really don't know. And for me, just to give a personal view on that, I would prefer that they would have 5 senior options and Engamoa is the 6th as a kind of the Chiesa type. That's a decent amount of minutes for an Engamoa where it isn't for Chiesa, so he'd be kind of happy there. He'd be playing a decent amount of minutes. That would really help his development, and then you have 5 really high quality options. For me, that should be the aim, but it's very hard to know whether that's what they're going to do, because my concern is that if you only have 4 and then Salah goes away and one of them gets an injury, you are starting Engamoa for an awful lot of games in the middle of a season where you're trying to win the title, and I think he's brilliant. What a talent he is, but is he at that level yet? I'm not sure. Or, do you want Frimpong in the front line for a big chunk of your games again? I'm not so sure about that. So, do you want to start moving Wirtz from his central role where he can pull the strings out wide, and all of a sudden you reshuffle in 5 or 6 positions to make it work? I'm personally not massively in favour of that, but we'll see. There's such a long way to go in the window, and I wonder whether if you get an Isak, does Fofana come onto the list as a kind of young option you can throw all over the place? Yeah, I'm not so sure really, but it's a really interesting one for me. I think that how that whole thing pans out.
I do get the feeling a bit like you say that Arne Slot's always talked about a small squad, and he's not afraid to say things like, as you said, no, Frimpong could go right. No, I could push Wirtz up. Like Szoboszlai's played there, Curtis Jones on occasions. He doesn't mind doing that at all. But then again, as we're alluding to at the same time, that AFCON, we know Salah misses, I think it's 6 league games at least, isn't it? And then you also think back to last season by playing quite often the same players. That was when the dip came, wasn't it, in the middle, when it really sort of caught up without the rest and refresh. And if there is no other options, that comes into the mix. As much as I'm excited by Alexander Isak, the big question mark alongside him is that injury record. I think a fool's going to ignore there's no real question mark there at the same time. So when you stack all that up, just one more forward, even if it's a younger one as well, like Fofana, who's prepared to play both wings, maybe a limited minutes, it does just feel like it makes all the sense in the world.
Yeah, I totally agree. That's it. You almost see a world where if Isak is signed, someone like him of his profile is kind of perfect to be a foil all the way across the front line. Gives you another option when Salah's away. Doesn't put too much pressure on Engamoa. Doesn't mean that Frimpong can't essentially back up Bradley at right back because he's doing so many minutes as a winger. You don't have to move Wirtz. All these things really. I'm just I just think a profile like this would make a lot of sense. But as I say, don't really have any information on him as a target, and we'll see. And maybe there's alternatives, but someone like that I think would make a lot of sense on top of an Isak, I'd say.
And I suppose for the final thing around incomings, that's just what makes it so hard to predict. And I get it, people will have opinions and go, it's definitely an attacker and 1 centre half. No, it's 2 centre backs we need and 2 attack, like 3, 4, 2. There's just no way of putting sort of it's like just pin the tail on the donkey a little bit, trying to guess at the moment, isn't it?
Yeah, I think what I feel, safe enough to kind of guarantee as much as you can guarantee anything in the transfer market is that there's going to be a centre half signed and there's going to be a forward. Yeah. Beyond that, it's very hard to. I lean towards feeling that there would just be the 1 centre half, but whether it's going to be 1 or 2 forwards, very, very difficult to say at the moment, really.
Yeah, it's hard. And again, a lot of people saying what you mentioned around young Rio, he'll cover Chiesa's minutes. But as you alluded to, with the greatest respect to Chiesa, it was so minimal. And we'll talk about a few players. But in terms of certainties, outgoings, as far as I'm aware, Luis Diaz could be in the air from Tokyo. He could have landed in Munich. But we finally got this almost Bayern bid that was coming by snail mail, 75 million euros, 65.5 million quid, I think it translates at. For the age, the price, the deal, everything around that, is this just one where every party's happy? Luis Diaz has got his new wage. Liverpool know he wants out. They've got a very good fee. Everyone just shakes hands happily and moves on.
Yeah, absolutely, really. I mean, we spoke, didn't we? Like, we all the way through this saga, really, and it has felt like a little bit of a saga. That Liverpool had no compulsion to do this unless the fee was decent, and I think in the end, what they got, they made a 25 million euro profit on him, I think, or 20 odd million profit on him, which is impressive for a 28-year-old with 2 years left on his contract. He's expressed a desire to leave as well. So, and you feel like Liverpool might have, he's probably in his peak now, so he's going to pass it soon. So, felt like a really, really good deal for Liverpool, to be honest, and I think a good deal for the player. He gets a pay bump over there. He gets to go and try the German league, and I'm sure he'll do really, really well out there. And also for Bayern, they've maybe paid, it's a little bit of a pricey deal, but I'd also say they're getting a very, very good player. Works his socks off. They lost Leroy Sané, hadn't they? They've got Musiala out injured, so they're a bit short of attacking options. So, I just think it's one that kind of works for everyone, really. I'd also say that, there's pressure on Liverpool now as well, because he was a key player last season, versatile, hard worker, did so much, key to that title win, and we had a really impressive season. So they've got to go and replace him now, which is not easy. But I think overall it does feel, as you say, a deal that suited all parties, really. I'm sure everyone can kind of feel like they're happy with it.
There was a few lines as well in the various Patch Journal reported, obviously from yourself and various others, that Liverpool had tried to renew his contract twice. But reading that fully with context, that wasn't this summer, is it? That's been previous times where they've had those discussions. But just because what the Diaz camp, by the sounds of it, were asking for against what we were prepared to offer, the gap's just too big, or was too big at the time.
Yeah, exactly. That is my understanding, and you could see a little bit of this playing out, really, because everybody saw the kind of Manchester City interest that materialised last season. That was quite clearly a bit of a play from the players' camp to kind of get a contract sorted or whatever. So, and a lot of the reporting out of Colombia as well has long suggested that he would have liked to have signed a new contract, and Liverpool just were never going to give him that, because as good a player as he was, as versatile, as brilliant, I mean, you look at the numbers there, they were never going to put him in that kind of bracket, really, were they? So, and I think that was the right decision. He was never giving you, as good as he was, all the, hard worker, everything, brilliant part of the team. He was never Sadio Mane level, was he? And you pay that kind of money to a Sadio Mane. So I think Liverpool were right not to give out the contract, really. But also then, Diaz totally entitled to go and try and find that money elsewhere. And, he's not just gone to Saudi to get the money. He's gone to a great club in a great league. And I'm sure Liverpool will probably come up against him in the Champions League at some point. So, but it's one where everyone is kind of, this is what we want from this whole scenario. And everybody feels like they've got it. So you just got to kind of be happy when that happens.
Yeah, it is a good deal and everyone wishes him well. And I suppose, speaking of Saudi there, one player that didn't play a single minute on Saturday, Darwin Núñez. Now, Arne Slot was quite open around Luis Diaz and saying, with all the distraction and things going on, he's not in the team sheet. But he actually said Núñez was a minor injury. Again, there's more suggestions around Al Hilal and waiting for that. Without being disrespectful, it just seems like all the options, bar that, are drying up fast. I know there's talk of AC Milan and Juventus, but after the Napoli debacle and that stretching, they're not going to pay anything like Liverpool are asking for, are they?
Yeah, I'd be surprised, I'd say, really, if he does end up going to Italy. I just think the clubs there are not going to ever put up the right kind of fee, really. So we'll see. Maybe someone can do a bit more than Napoli, and that gets him there. But I still say strong favourites. The Saudi clubs and Al Hilal in particular seem to be pretty keen, don't they? So again, just kind of waiting for them to do something. Are they going to be like Bayern and say that the offer's coming for 6 weeks before it actually does? We'll see. But the key factor there is that, I never got the impression with Diaz that he was massively open to Saudi, because that interest was there, but they never were given the green light to do anything about it. Whereas with Nunes, we know in the past he's shown an inclination to go there. So because that's the case, gives you a good chance maybe to get a deal over the line. And just waiting for them to actually finally pull the trigger. But they're doing a lot of talking about it at the moment.
Yeah, it does feel like one of the many who's heading for the exit, but waiting for actually something concrete to materialise. And I mean, this is definitely not concrete, but quite a few outlets have got this. I mean, it feels like only the other day he was starring that Euro Under-21 final. Obviously, the Lionesses have just had their success, which was brilliant. But Harvey Elliott, it seemed to have gone quiet. But this one came up this week. Spurs, because the Morgan Gibbs-White deal collapsed, didn't it? He signed a new deal at Nottingham Forest. Heard anything on this one, or could you see it, him at Tottenham, Harvey Elliott?
Yeah, it's an interesting link, obviously. What's interesting about this is I got the vibe that the West Ham one, that link that was doing the round, that the player himself wasn't particularly keen on that, and that he thought he'd get someone further up the table. Now, Tottenham, not quite further up the table. They didn't do very well last season, did they? But they are in the Champions League. They're probably going to do better this season under a decent manager. So I'm sure that'll be the hope. And they are a bigger club, aren't they? So maybe makes more sense. But I haven't personally had any info on this one. So, we wait and see. Still in the boat, really, where we're kind of expecting him to leave now. Which, again, like a few months ago, I would have kind of said that would have been unlikely, but you look at the signings that Liverpool have made, it's just very hard to see him getting in the team now, sadly. So, maybe Spurs are going to end up being an option for him, but I think he thinks he can do, he can get a better option than West Ham. And I tend to agree with him on that as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Top half, challenging for sort of honours. Like, there's quite a few clubs, and people are mentioning it in the chat panel as well. Could Harvey be used as a make weight for clubs like Newcastle? Should be all over that, but we'll have to wait and see with that one. The other youngster that, I don't know, it's fair to say it seems to have gone a bit quiet on. Ben Doak was linked with so many options and different things, but that just seems completely silent at the moment.
Yeah, but again, I still kind of think it's one of those really with Doak. I think he's not going to be playing football at Liverpool next season. I can say that with some confidence, but it's all about whether someone offers the right amount for a permanent, or they have to kind of, towards the end of the window, farm him out on loan again. So, the ball's in the court of the interested clubs, really. Are you going to give Liverpool the decision to make on a permanent, or a club's just going to wait and see if they can pick him up later in the window? We'll kind of see in terms of that. But as I say, there are no opportunities for him at Liverpool coming up. So it will be, a sale or a loan. But I think Liverpool would probably prefer a permanent. But if that interest doesn't come, just get him out on loan and see if that can bump his value up a little bit.
Yeah, you do think it. Either way, he deserves first team football of a certain level next season. And the one maybe sadness in the current developments today, Luis Diaz has gone, or is going. His tune's a banger, and probably even a better tune, Federico Chiesa. So we're going to lose the two bangers from the stadium next season. But this seems to be developing a bit more. You've probably seen the stories today that Inter Milan looking at Ademola Lookman and trying to get that deal done. And people are thinking, why are you talking about this? Because strong suggestions in Italy that if that happens, Atalanta are looking at Federico Chiesa to come in. And I suppose in the politest way, because he didn't play too many minutes, if Liverpool can get their money back, that 10 million from Atalanta or whoever, they will do it, you fancy, won't they?
Yeah, I mean, I guess that's why it's kind of it was a bit of a no-brainer, really, in terms of, because of the price that they could get him for, that they would largely make it back, or at least get close to that, because there was always going to be Italian clubs interested in him. And we've said for a while on this podcast, haven't we, that Italy was going to be his destination, and that was the expectation this summer, and that is still the case. So don't personally know about the Atalanta one, but it would be seemingly a decent move for him, I think. So yeah, just a case of waiting for them to firm that up. But yeah, I'd be surprised if he doesn't end up back in Serie A this summer.
Yeah, it does feel like quite a few of the forward or attacking based players that are going to depart. And I suppose the final question, because a few you've probably seen this in the chat panel floating by talking about, is there any other names? Is there anyone else in the mix? I mean, apart from players like Guehi especially, there doesn't really seem to be any centre-half names floating about publicly anyway, but obviously people are discussing any things. Is there still a chance that it can just be a name from nowhere as usual?
Oh, always. I mean, to be fair, I feel like that's happening less and less these days because there's so much access to information. Things are just getting out left, right, and centre, even for a club like Liverpool, which are very good at keeping the cards close to the chest. Even they kind of find it hard not to have the names of transfer targets put out there. But I think what you see and with the centre half thing is that they will pivot to the other profile, won't they? The younger centre halves we talked about, but only in the instance that they can't get Guehi. And the fact that they haven't done that yet suggests to me that they still believe that they can get Guehi, and that's certainly information I've got. So they're just waiting on that one. And then if that can't happen for whatever reason, then we'll start to hear alternative names. I mean, I've thrown out a few in things I've written about some of the young centre halves they've watched. Yeah. So, but they're not on the radar at the moment because the idea is to try and sign Mark Guehi, but it's, wait and see on that front. And yeah, like I say, on the forwards, quite hard to judge really how many they're going to sign in the end. And we know that the big piece of the puzzle is going to be Isak, but a lot of dominoes to fall yet. So, maybe if those two deals get done, maybe we start to hear a few more names about potential other slight additions, maybe if that is a forward or whatever. But it's a bit quiet in terms of new, fresh names coming up at the moment.
Fingers crossed we will hear something soon. And that's where we are, ladies and gents. We're all waiting for the major story and the dominoes to fall like you are. We're all wondering if new names will come out the woodwork. We're all wondering how many forwards, how many centre-backs. It all remains to be seen. And even late July in the summer, there is plenty to happen before the league starts. All it leaves me to say as ever is, for the time, the analysis, for the insight, and for carrying the show for about 11 minutes worth of it, David, it is much appreciated as ever.
Yeah, I'll be invoicing double bubble for this one, mate.
Yeah, I'll leave that one with Eddie, but very fair. And there we go, ladies and gents. On a Monday evening, that was another Media Matters for Anfield.